Growing numbers of Jews are waking up, and at Machon Shilo we pray that these discussions between Rabbi David Bar-Hayim and former prisoner of Zion, Pollard, contribute towards this process and bring about the change that can save the Jewish nation. Welcome, Yehonathan.
Hi.
Rabbi Bar-Hayim.
Shalom. Welcome to all our viewers and to you, of course, Yonathan. For the record, I must state the following, that everywhere I go for the last few months, the first thing that most people say to me is how much we enjoy your conversations with Jonathan Pollard. And I should perhaps also point out that I never imagined that this would become a regular event. It's not something I planned. It's not something I planned. Some people may even think that it's unusual for someone who's better known as a rabbi, perhaps, to discuss such matters. But the fact is, as I say, first of all, it was not plotted out in advance that this would be the case, and it's become increasingly popular with many viewers. But I think it also needs to be stated that the Torah, being a truth system for understanding the world and living in the world in communion with Hashem, the Creator, part of the Torah is to understand and to know what goes on in the world, and not to live in a false paradise. Even though the truth often is painful or unpleasant, but I think it's better to be aware of the truths rather than be unaware or insist and convince ourselves that the reality is something other than it is in fact, because that is a guaranteed path to disaster. And that's exactly, of course, what we see and what is unfolding before our eyes at the present time. It was plain to all people who wished to know the truth, who wished to deal with reality, that what happened on the 22nd of Tishrei, Tafshin Pei Daled, 7th of October 2023, that which happened on that day was bound to happen. And there were many, many people who said so, going back decades, that if you pursue these policies, this will be the outcome. And of course, they were ridiculed and relegated to the lunatic fringes. But they were right. And it's precisely those people in positions of power who chose to tell themselves a different story and created their own, not just dubious, but downright fictitious narratives. Those people led us to disaster, the disaster with which we are trying to deal, or some of us are trying to deal at the present time, because I think there are also quite a few people who are actually not on the same page. With regards to that, I will mention here, to begin with, that which we started with also last week. Last week we mentioned that there was some deal cut with Hamas. And I should state for the record that I oppose any and all deals with Hamas on anything at all. But there was some deal cut with Hamas by the French and Qatar authorities, government of Qatar, regarding to do with various negotiations. And one of the promises was that medications would be sent from Israel for various hostages with their names, etc., on them in boxes, the medications that these people require. Some of these people are elderly and unwell, and require regular medications. And these would be passed on to whoever it was exactly in Gaza, and they would reach those hostages. Well, last week we mentioned that in the raid that took place approximately a week ago, or just maybe 10 days ago now, carried out by the Amam, which is an elite police anti-terror unit. Some say the very best of its class and of its type in the world. They pulled off an amazing, flawlessly executed commando raid in Rafah, or Rafah, as the Arabs call it. And those who cannot pronounce a heth insist on calling it Rafah. They pulled off an amazing raid, and they were able to bring to freedom 2 Israeli elderly gentlemen who were held in captivity for months. These 2 people were supposed to be recipients of those medications, and they were asked immediately, and they were told, and they responded, "We never saw any medications. We received nothing." Over the last 2 days, we've all seen video footage of Israeli commando units entering the Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza Strip. And there in the hospital were found those boxes of medications sent by people in Israel, by their families, to these hostages, with their names written on the boxes plainly, as was required by that deal, with their photographs stuck onto those boxes. The medications were untouched and had never reached those hostages. And I'm sure, Jonathan, that you are as completely shocked as I am.
Horrified, surprised.
Who would have thought?
I think we have to have some takeaways from this. You indicated that you opposed any such deals with Hamas, and that's the opinion of a clear-thinking person. You cannot trust these terrorists at all, and that is not the only takeaway from this incident. You can't trust the guarantors either. The French, I'm not going to let the French and the Qataris and possibly even the Red Cross, although I've lost all confidence in them whatsoever. I don't even regard them as valid players in this game. But no guarantors acted appropriately in this matter. The French and the Qataris in particular should have done everything they could to have guaranteed the safe delivery of these medicines to their intended recipients. Now, what are we to think now going forward? One takeaway is the fact that terrorists can't be trusted. Okay, you can check that box. The next is the guarantors can't be trusted either. So by the way, neither the Qataris, to my knowledge, neither the Qataris nor the French have said anything about this. We're sorry, something fell through the cracks, we were remiss, something.
We were misled.
Misled. Yeah, that would have been.
Although we wouldn't believe the latter, but
doesn't matter. But at least you have to say something. They haven't said anything. Crickets, as we say, crickets, silence. So they're not even embarrassed by this. That's the thing. They're not even embarrassed.
Why would they be? Because they must have known all along that nothing would come of such a.
Of course not. Of course not. And all the medicine, apparently, that we had to also provide to Hamas, to the civilians, also disappeared, by the way. That's the other story, the other part of this story. It wasn't just medicine for our hostages. Hamas insisted that additional medications also be provided for the innocent civilians of Gaza. Well, guess what? I'll give you one guess. What happened to that medicine?
The ones who kept RPGs and
correct. The
and
civilians
explosive devices under their child's crib.
Correct. Well, that medicine disappeared also, and some of it has been found actually in some of the tunnels, the fighting tunnels.
Again, I'm shocked.
Who would have thought that? So Hamas has many thousands of wounded, seriously wounded fighters who, until this deal that was done, were lacking adequate medicine. Well, they have the medicine now. The last thing about this horrible deal that was agreed to was something that Ben Gvir came out with just a few days ago. It was an open letter.
Referring to Itamar Ben Gvir, the Minister for Internal National Security.
National Security, where he quite rightly said, no more, quote, humanitarian aid should be made available to the, ostensibly, the civilians in Gaza. But as we've all seen in the videos, and as the head of the Shabak, the Secret Service in Israel has admitted, 60 to 70% of it is going to Hamas, is hijacked by Hamas. None of that stuff, none of it should be delivered until we can guarantee that the medicine that was promised to our hostages has been delivered.
I actually saw yesterday a letter written by Minister Ben Gvir to the Prime Minister Netanyahu to that effect, demanding that all such shipments be suspended. I do not believe that he received even a response.
No, he didn't. But there wasn't any pushback either. He basically was given the green light to go ahead and publicize this letter. For reasons, well, who knows? He did the right thing, but the government didn't, because the convoys are still, if they can get by the protests, our protesters down on the crossings into Gaza, they're still being delivered. And certainly the convoys, the aid convoys coming in from Egypt are coming in without any hindrance whatsoever. So, again, Itamar shouldn't have been the one to have to publish that statement. It should have come from the war cabinet. It should have been signed by Gantz. It should have been signed by Eisenkot. It should have been signed by Gallant and Bibi.
But then again, one would not expect from someone like Gantz or Eisenkot, who participated in one of these alternative Remembrance Day ceremonies together with Hamas families, you would not expect them to sign such a letter.
No. So going forward, I hope people keep in mind as we approach the next election, right, and Bezalel Smotrich, and yeah, they were the only ones. So we should remember Zahor. We should remember this going forward. But I think the biggest takeaway from this that I can imagine is the lack of any reliance, the lack of reliability, I'll put it that way, of guarantors in this matter. The Qataris in particular, being as close as they are to Hamas, both in terms of...
You mean that when one hears talk about a putative so-called Palestinian state that would, of course, be demilitarized
and guaranteed.
and guaranteed by international guarantees. You mean you're not quite convinced? Your mind's not put at ease?
No, no. Fool me once, okay, fool me twice. I'm not going to the second one. I'm not going to the first one. We should have known starting from in 1967 when the UN was pulled out of Gaza, when the Straits of Tiran was closed, and the tripartite agreement involving guarantors, the United States, Great Britain, and France were no-shows in terms of helping us down there. And it just goes on, whether it was UNIFIL in Lebanon or their equivalents in Syria doing nothing. The bottom line is the only guarantors we have are Kodesh Baruch Hu and the army. That's it. No one else can be relied upon to guarantee our security. And I put that in the proper order.
As someone just pointed out,
we pray to Hashem.
Sorry, as someone just pointed out in the chat, it's the same UN and other international guarantees and guarantors who swore blind that the Hezbollah would not be able to go south of the Litani River and would not be on our border.
Correct.
Well, we know how that worked out. Correct.
I also have to point out that it's as much our fault as it is that of the United Nations and all the other guarantees.
I would absolutely agree.
In the minute it was violated, we should have moved immediately. You're not going to abide by this agreement, and the guarantors aren't going to do anything about it. Thank you. We'll take care of it from now on. Thank you. We didn't do that. The military didn't want to do it. They were happy with just, quote, managing the problem or kicking the can down the road or mowing the grass.
The top brass, to put it bluntly, do not believe that there should be wars and that there should be a need to fight. At most, they believe in robots and cameras and balloons.
Either technology or the Air Force.
Or it can be or it can be solved by negotiation, obviously.
Or negotiation. But none of these ideas or none of these options will do anything to remove the threats that we're facing. But that's fine with them.
Well, that's okay. But that's okay because they are deterred, obviously, right? So we were told.
We're the ones deterred. I liken them to prison wardens who simply want to end the day without any escapes or harm to their staff. They're happy.
Without incident.
Without incident, that's correct. And I lived in that environment for 30 years, and I observed it very, very carefully. And when I came home to Israel, I noticed this phenomenon being repeated by our military. They just want to end the day without any problems. And they consider it managing the enemy. Well, this is how you get October 6th. Or October 7th, but they knew on October 6th.
That's what you do on October 6th if you wish to end up in October 7th.
Correct.
Yes.